Hey there, welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us discuss about serializer field as well as some core argument. So if you jump onto the documentation part again, just go to API guide, click on serializer fields, and here you will get an understanding about core arguments as well as different type of fields. Now what I mean by core argument. So whenever we are working with any type of field, there are chances that we need to add some restriction, there are chances that we need to add a specific quality. Here with that I refer to a specific instruction. So with this core argument we can pass that value. Suppose here we need to pass a value for read only, here we are using validators, there can be anything else. So if you jump onto the documentation you will see read only, you will see write only. So we usually use read only when we don't want our client to have access to that particular element. So if I talk about this ID, I want my client to see this ID, that means they have access for read only but they cannot write it, it's automatic field. So if I'm using write only, that means they cannot read this but have access to write. Then we have required field, then we have some default value, and we have few others. So these are core arguments. As we grow our database, as we grow our serializer, we will add these fields. At currently we only have these 3 or 4 fields, name, description, active, and we have these fields. That's why we have very less number of core argument. But if someone is having 10 or 20 fields, there are chances they are adding some more core arguments according to their requirement. The second thing I want to talk about these field names. So if you scroll down a bit, you will see boolean, then we have string, then numeric, and a few others. What are they? I guess if you have worked with Django for models, you already know them. So when we work with string, we have different type of field, like I'm using a character field here. Maybe if I'm working with boolean, I'm using this boolean field. So these fields help us to specifically define what that item is. Here, if you check out this boolean field, we have 2 different types. Then if I talk about string field, we have char field, email, regex, slug, URL, and few others. If I am talking about numbers, I have integer, float, as well as decimal. If I'm using a date and time field, then I have date and time field, date field, time field, as well as duration. So there are few others. Now why I'm talking about these fields as well as these core argument. So there are chances that maybe you want to serialize according to a specific way, so you can utilize a specific field. Now most of us who already have information about these models, we can directly judge the serializer field. But if you don't have knowledge about models, maybe chances are if you are writing SQL queries yourself, then maybe you don't have this model information. At that point of time you need to write these fields. But I guess most of us already have information about this model, most of us already have information of what a char field is. So you don't have to worry much. Now if you need any information in future, I strongly recommend documentation. The reason I am discussing everything step by step through documentation is if in future there is an update, or if in future you are working on a company project and there are chances that you are working on a specific requirement. Maybe you are working on IP address field. So all you have to do is just jump onto this documentation, get here, click on this IP address field, and maybe if you have experience you can directly use them. So these fields are pretty important for specific use cases. Otherwise, I don't think you are going to use them in future. But maybe in future if you are working on a specific project and by chance you have a specific requirement, these fields are helpful. So the most common fields are boolean, then we have char, then we have email, then if you are working with numbers, then integer as well as float, then date and time field, and there will be few custom like the SerializerMethodField. So these are the common fields. Otherwise all the fields that we have, maybe we have approx 20 to 30, we are going to use maybe 5 or 7, the most common ones. That's all. The motive of this lecture was to just make you aware about them as well as the core arguments. So in the next lecture what we are going to do is we are going to talk about ModelSerializer, as well as we need to update our database. This model we need to add more fields. But in the next lecture let us talk about ModelSerializer and see how we are going to decrease all this length. So if I jump here, just jump onto my serializer, click on this model serializer, you will see that okay, they have decreased the size like this. That means we are going to decrease the complete size of our current serializer. Thank you for following. In the next lecture, let us start our journey with ModelSerializer.